Ethan was the kind of man who carried the weight of the world quietly on his shoulders. In a small American town where everyone knew everyone, he was known as the single father who never gave up. Since his wife's passing, life had been an uphill battle, but for his daughter Lily, he worked tirelessly. By day he labored at a construction site, and by night he washed dishes in a local diner. Money was always tight, yet he never let Lily feel the emptiness of what they lacked. To her, he was not just a father but a hero who kept her world safe and full of love. One chilly evening, after finishing another exhausting shift, Ethan drove along the lonely stretch of road leading home. His hands ached, and his eyes burned with fatigue, but something ahead caught his attention. A motorbike sat motionless on the roadside, its rider, a young woman, struggling to figure out what had gone wrong. Ethan could have kept driving, no one would have blamed him. Yet that wasn't who he was. Despite his weariness, he pulled over. The woman looked surprised but relieved when he approached. Ethan offered her a reassuring smile, the same one he gave Lily when things seemed hard. Without hesitation, he grabbed his old, worn-out toolkit from the back of his truck and crouched by the bike. Helping strangers wasn't about reward for him. It was simply who he was, a man who, even in struggle, chose kindness over convenience. Ethan's life was a quiet battle against exhaustion and hardship, but he bore it all with steady resilience. Living in a modest small-town home, his world revolved around his daughter Lily, a bright little girl who gave meaning to every sacrifice he made. To provide for her, Ethan split his days between two jobs, often returning home with tired eyes and calloused hands. Yet, even in the toughest moments, he never complained. He believed that love was shown not in words, but in the actions he chose every day to keep her safe, fed, and smiling. One late evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the road in fading gold, Ethan drove home after his second shift. The temptation to collapse into bed tugged at him, but fate placed another challenge in his path. On the shoulder of the road, a young woman stood beside her motorbike, visibly frustrated and stranded. Ethan noticed immediately, his instinct stronger than his exhaustion. He could have continued driving, after all, no one expected anything from a tired father heading home. But kindness had become second nature to him. He slowed, pulled over, and stepped out, offering a calm, reassuring presence. The woman's tense expression softened as he greeted her with a gentle smile. Fetching his old toolkit from the truck, Ethan knelt beside the broken bike. For him, helping was not about recognition or gain. It was simply his way of living, proving that even in struggle, compassion could shine through. Ethan had grown used to living with tired bones and weary nights, yet he faced each day with quiet strength. In his small town, everyone knew him as the single father who worked himself to the limit just to keep life steady for his daughter, Lily. She was his light, his reason, the smile that pushed him through endless shifts at the construction site and long hours scrubbing dishes in the diner. Life was hard, sometimes brutally so, but he never let Lily see the weight he carried. To her, he was simply Dad, the man who made her feel safe, loved, and cared for, no matter what. That evening, driving home after a grueling day, Ethan's eyes were heavy, his body begging for rest. Yet, when he spotted a lone motorbike on the side of the road and a young woman standing helplessly beside it, he knew he couldn't ignore her. The bike's engine was silent, her expression frustrated and uncertain. For a moment, Ethan considered the exhaustion pressing on him, the warm bed waiting just a few miles away. But then his nature, steady, selfless, took over. He pulled his old truck to the side, rolled down the window, and offered a kind smile. "Need some help?" he asked, his voice calm, carrying the gentleness Lily knew so well. Grabbing his battered toolbox from the back, he crouched by the bike, determined to fix it. For Ethan, kindness wasn't a choice, it was who he was, even when life gave him every reason to pass by. Ethan's life was a cycle of hard work and quiet sacrifice. Since losing his wife, every ounce of his energy had gone into raising Lily, his little daughter who meant the world to him. Their small house was modest, their possessions few, but their home was filled with warmth. Ethan worked 2 jobs, construction by day, dishes by night, often returning home with aching muscles and weary eyes. Still, he greeted Lily with a smile, never letting her see the exhaustion buried beneath. To him, love was about showing up, no matter how heavy the load became. That night, after finishing another late shift, Ethan drove down a lonely stretch of road. The world outside his truck was quiet, the stars faint against the dark sky. He longed for nothing more than to rest his head, but his attention was drawn to a figure ahead. A motorbike sat still at the roadside, its rider, a young woman, looking lost and troubled. She glanced at the engine, clearly unsure of what to do. Ethan slowed his truck, his instincts guiding him before his tired body could argue. Pulling over, he stepped out with a gentle smile that carried more reassurance than words. "Evening, need a hand?" he asked softly. Without hesitation, he fetched his worn toolbox from the back. The woman's worried face eased with relief as Ethan crouched by the bike. Though exhausted, he never thought twice. For him, kindness wasn't an act reserved for when life was easy, it was a promise he kept, no matter the cost. Ethan had learned to live with fatigue as if it were an old companion. Every sunrise began with work, every sunset ended with more work, and in between, he found moments of joy in his daughter Lily's laughter. She was the heartbeat of his life, the reason he endured long hours at construction sites and late nights in the diner kitchen. Money was scarce, but love was abundant in their little home. To Lily, her father was a hero who never let hardship dim his smile. To Ethan, she was the light that kept him moving forward. That evening, his truck hummed along a quiet country road. The weight of the day pressed heavily on his shoulders, but his mind drifted to Lily, waiting for him at home. Just then, he spotted a motorbike parked awkwardly at the roadside. A young woman stood beside it, arms folded, eyes filled with frustration. Her bike was broken, and the loneliness of the road made her situation even harder. Ethan could have driven past, after all, exhaustion gnawed at him, and home was so close. But that wasn't in his nature. With a steady hand, he pulled over, stepped out, and offered a kind, reassuring smile. "Looks like you could use some help," he said gently. Reaching into the back of his truck, he grabbed his battered old toolbox, the same one that had helped him through countless struggles. For Ethan, helping wasn't about convenience. It was about being human, about choosing kindness even when life made it difficult.